Up next, our next speaker, Matheu. A lifelong gamer, Matheu spends his days working on AAA titles and his evenings and weekends developing his own indie titles. He has a passion for developing video games as an artistic medium and works to encourage the involvement of a diversity of voices and experiences in the field. Everybody welcome him to the stage.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Just want to start by saying thanks to the organizers. This game community is so awesome to be a part of, and it's so awesome that we get events like this. It's even more awesome when we get to do game jams in support of things like Extra Life. So this is an awesome event. I just want to give a shout out to Dan and June and all the people who volunteer their time in order to make this happen. It's truly great and incredible. So yeah, let's get started. So for those of you who I haven't had the chance to meet yet, my name is Matheu Plouffe. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm a Métis game developer here in Winnipeg, Manitoba. For the past 6 years, I've been working for Ubisoft on games like Roller Champions and R6 Mobile. And then in my spare time on evenings and weekends, I keep making games, a bunch of indie titles in game jams and on my own projects under the title Level Zero Games. So today I want to talk about my fears in game dev. I thought this would be an interesting topic for a couple reasons. First of all, I think it's good to talk about fears because it kind of takes away their power when you kind of say them out loud and talk about them out in the open. And I just wanted to kind of acknowledge that, even though I've been doing this for 6 years and I work for professional game studio, there's still things about this that scare me. And I just wanted to kind of talk about those and maybe talk about some of the techniques that I've used in order to deal with them. And hopefully, if you're experiencing any of these fears, maybe you'll come away with a few tips or tricks that you can use to deal with them. So let's get started. My top 5 fears in game dev. Number 1, I'm not a game developer. This is, you can take the title game developer and kind of swap it in for anything that you feel like, oh, I'm just not, I don't have the experience, I don't have the skills in order to do this. Should I be here? Is someone going to find out? Am I a fraud? So this whole type of thing, unfortunately, it's very common in the industry. It's called imposter syndrome. And it's so common that even at Ubisoft, where we have hugely talented developers who have been hired in from around the world to come work here, you still see it all over the place. I've met developers who are 20 years in the business and they still suffer from imposter syndrome. So there's not really a way to kind of solve it, but there definitely is some ways to manage it. One of the first ways to manage it that I found is kind of what we're already doing here. Get involved in this community. I mean, if you feel like you're not a game developer, just look around at this awesome and diverse group of people we have here. There is no one template that is what a game developer is. We're all unique. We all bring our own combination of unique experiences and things that make you are who you are, and bringing that to a game is something special. You have value, and your contribution to video games has value no matter what that is, no matter what you're bringing to games. So it's already great that you're getting involved in this community and can kind of help you that way. Another thing that really helps with this is just being kind to yourself. I know I'm my own harshest critic. The things I say to myself about what I'm doing, I would never say to another person because that would just come off as mean and rude. But when it comes to myself, I will totally berate myself and be angry with myself about things I've done. So just remember to be kind to yourself. And we're all on a journey, right? At Ubisoft, when a new dev joins, to them, I'm a senior dev. But to some of the other devs there, I'm a total junior. So we're all on a path, and we all get there faster if we all help each other out. So be kind to yourself and then radiate that kindness to others. When you're not feeling that imposter syndrome, have sympathy for those people who are and help them out. All right, fear number 2, getting started is overwhelming. So you're starting, we're all starting a game jam. You're sitting there, you haven't got the project started yet, and there's just so much stuff to choose, so many things to pick. What game engine am I going to do? What type of game am I going to do? What art am I going to use? What music am I going to use? There's a litany of decisions to be made. This is often called decision paralysis. It's just that there's so many options to pick from, and it's impossible to kind of hold them all in your head and balance them critically. So I think the important thing to do is not panic. Just take a deep breath and pick a lane, because no matter what decision you make, you're going to learn a lot. And if you make the wrong decision, you're just going to be that much more prepared to make the right decision next time. The important thing is to not let decision paralysis stall you from making the game, because even a bad game complete is worth 1,000 times more than the perfect game that only exists in your head. Another good way to tackle the feeling of being overwhelmed is to scope down. We just heard Graham's a great talk about talking about scope, and it's a good idea to kind of just pare down your idea if you're getting overwhelmed by it. Either just strip down some mechanics, or maybe just kind of make more of a vertical slice of the game. Or you can even do this in terms of the game jam itself. You can just pick I'm only going to work on programming, or I'm only going to work on game design, or I'm only going to work on art this time. And then that way you can scope down the amount of decisions you have to make, and it can be a lot less overwhelming. If scoping down isn't an option, either your idea is just what it is and has to stay there, and you're still overwhelmed by the amount of decisions you have to make, then you just got to start breaking it down. You got to take those tasks that are overwhelming you and break them down into pieces that you can accomplish. If those broken down pieces still feel too big, just keep breaking them down. Just keep breaking it down until you get down to actionable items that you can take immediate action on. At that point, you'll have a long list of items. Might be an overwhelmingly long list, but at least then you can start taking action on it. And once you start getting that forward momentum, you'll be able to get over that feeling of being overwhelmed, and then you'll start to get forward traction. All right. Oop, I clicked on something. Here we go. Okay. So next up, I don't know how to do blank. So there's lots of stuff in game dev, right? There's music, there's art, there's animation, there's programming, there's so much stuff to do. No one knows everything 100%, and so there's always going to be stuff that you're running into that you need for your game, but you don't know how to do. So there's basically two ways to tackle this. One is to do it yourself. I'm a compo game jammer, so I do everything myself. Game art, game design, programming, everything. I touch everything. And I like it that way because it gives me a chance to do things that I don't normally do. I'm not the greatest artist, but I like to flex those muscles on occasion. I'm not really a good composer, but I like to play around with that sometimes. So for me, when I come across something that I haven't done before, I'm like, yes, challenge. I get to try this out and learn something new and develop my skills. So that's not the favored choice for everyone. Some people are like, no, I'm a programmer. I just want someone else to do art. In that case, you're going to have to find someone to do it for you. In which case, again, huge community of people here who are really talented and really enthusiastic and passionate about game development. There's that meetup tomorrow in order to for matchmaking. So yeah, just reach out and talk to people in the community and find someone who wants to do the thing that you need being done. All right, fear number 4, I don't have any ideas. This can be a problem. You're sitting down, you're like, okay, I know what game engine I'm going to do. I just need an idea for a game, and you're staring at that blank piece of paper, and just nothing's coming up. You're just beating your head against the wall, coming up with an idea, trying to come up with an idea. So what do you do in that scenario? So the solution I'm going to suggest is probably going to surprise no one. It's brainstorming. I know you're like, oh, come up with ideas, very smart, right? But the thing I want to emphasize here is that brainstorming is really a skill. It's not just like, oh, some people are creative and they can brainstorm stuff and some people can't. It's a matter of practicing that. I used to be a filmmaker, and when I was a filmmaker, one of the things I did is I wanted to be able to come up with better ideas for scripts and stuff. And so I just said, okay, I'm going to take half an hour each day and just brainstorm for half an hour every day. And I would just write down all the ideas I could. And the more I continued to do it, the better I got at it, and the more ideas that would come out of it, and the more I liked the quality of the ideas that were coming out. So yeah, the other advantage of doing this consistently is that then you suddenly have a reservoir of ideas to go back to. So if you're on one of those days where you're just not having any creative juice and it's not coming to you, you can refer back to those pile of creative ideas, and it can really help you. So that sounds great, you say, but I haven't been practicing brainstorming, and I'm about to enter a jam, and I still don't have an idea. Is there anything you can do to help? And at that point, I would say derive from the classics. So I think you can take kind of works that exist as more or less of a starting point and then build from there. This is something I did in one of my game jam projects. I took the game of Pong and just kind of twisted it a bit. So I kind of made it vertical, and this game isn't great or anything like that, but I learned a ton in that process. Both replicating a game that already exists, you learn a ton doing that, and then tweaking game elements of that, you also learn a lot about not only how those choices that they made in the original game affect game feel, but how the choices that you're making affect game feel. So if you recreate Mario Brothers and change the way that the jump mechanic works, you'll really see how that factors into the game and how that it contributes to game feel. So I think in a game jam context, this is totally like a legitimate way to kind of build a game, right? Just kind of be like, okay, I'm going to make like Mario Brothers, but I'm going to tweak all the enemies and change all this stuff. Don't rip off people's ideas, obviously, but taking that as taking something that exists as a creative starting point can be a good point in order to break off and then kind of build your own thing. Right, fear number 5, the game I'm making is bad. So no one ever sets out to make a bad video game, but bad video games exist. So there's a chance you could be making one. And that's a little bit scary because we're investing a lot of time and effort into making these games, and no one wants to make a bad game. So first off, I have some bad news. Probably you're right. The game is probably going to be bad. That happens a lot, but it's nothing to worry about. Again, going back to filmmaking, there's a quote by Robert Rodriguez, and he said that every filmmaker has 10 bad films in them. And that was his belief, and so in his mind, he had to start making films so he could get those 10 bad films out of his system, and then he could start making good films. And that really resonates with me. It's not that I think we all have 10 bad films in us or anything like that, but I think it speaks to the importance of experience and practice in developing your skills as an artist, right? And so maybe, you know, the first game jam game you make isn't that great, doesn't turn out the way you want, it's not, you know, the next Minecraft. But you know what, it's still a building block, and then the next game you make is even better than that, and the next game you make is even better than that, and you can grow like that. This is the other quote I think about that a lot with this, is that it's important that, you know, we look at this as a process of development and growth, right? Games exist as their own like self-contained entity. Like at the end of this, you'll have your game project that exists on its own, but it's also part of that larger conversation of your own development. So if you kind of break out of that like black and white success fail kind of mentality and just look at it as the experience and the development, you never really fail because you're always learning and developing. Yeah. Oh, and so we still don't want to make bad games, right? So there's still ways to kind of avoid that. And one of the ways to avoid that is, you know, again, this community that we have here. We're all game developers. We're all very game-educated people. Playtest. Playtest early, playtest often, get people to play your game. And when you do playtest your game, don't give, just let people play the game. Just hand them the controller and let them play it. Don't give them a big long preamble of what the game is and how the controls work and all this stuff. Just give them the controller and see what they do. Because you'll learn so much more about your game that way. You'll challenge all your assumptions of how you expect people to interact with your game, and you'll see what people actually do. So you'll learn so much. So, and the last thing I'll say about playtesting is that also just take it with a grain of salt, because it is just everyone's opinion. So if someone suggests something that you don't like, don't feel like you need to implement it, but also don't just disregard that opinion. Sometimes being able to define what you like in the face of like what you don't want will really help define what you're trying to do, right? So don't discard feedback, but also don't feel like you need to incorporate it just because someone offered you your opinion about something. All right, so in conclusion, I just want to reiterate that everyone here is awesome for participating in this game jam. I'm so excited to make games with all you guys this weekend, and I'm so excited to look forward to the showcase when we get to all play each other's games and celebrate this awesome community. That is it for me. Thank you.